Hello, another Stories with Susy. Yet again, we're using the window, safe. Sophie's in a mask outside, plenty of fresh air, and today it's window on Todi in Umbria in Italy, where I spent 10 delightful years, originally whilst living in Bhutan, which leads on from my last talk. I knew this town vaguely, and when we decided we needed a base to root us a little bit during our nomadic life, I remembered this town, and luckily we found a delightful tiny house in the middle of the medieval town. Medieval town Todi actually started as Etruscan and Umbri, ancient tribes. Then the Romans came, and it was on two hills, filled in the space between the two hills with huge water cisterns, and then filled in the top, and that was the piazza, which is very famous even in Italy. So an Etruscan ring, a Roman ring, because of tremendous activity in Roman times, and then medieval walls. And we lived in a tiny, tiny medieval house, which is actually on this map here, shows the garden. And it was the house, turned out to be the house of Lindsay Kemp, he's passed away now, but a wonderful theatrical mime artist, dancer, opera director, one-off, a visual poet, one could say. And we became firm friends and had many adventures within Todi and also outside Todi. So after a few years, he left Todi and moved up to Livorno on the coast. And I would go up and visit him there. So Todi, yes, with these built on all these waterways and cisterns, I suppose the theme is a little bit about that, the wells, because water, after no one can live without water. So the wells were really important, and the waterways. And I fell in love with these hand-forged hooks.
Oh, wow.
One of which I got on a fabulous, wonderful old chain.
Uh-huh.
And people had these because obviously going and collecting the water in the well,
You hang them over the edge, that's it. Yeah.
they'd have a longer chain than that. If you're hanky or whatever, you'd have to put this on the end of the rope and drag the well, and hopefully you'd recover your goods. I just love them as sculptural objects.
Beautiful.
So traditionally, and I have a friend, there was a speleological society, and they would go deep, deep underground and find Roman rings, all sorts of treasures, and some not so nice treasures. So that was interesting. That was one of my great loves. And also, after heavy, heavy rains, there was a certain hill in the back here, and you'd find fragments of Roman pottery. And it definitely is, because this is terra sigillata. It's burnished. It's like a liquid clay, and then they burnish it, and you get this lovely, look, there's the base of a pot.
Beautiful.
And there's a red one. So that was a bit of a thrill for a romantic like me.
You see them here.
Can you see them?
Oh, yeah. Beautiful.
See the sheen on the...
Mm-hmm.
The museum, of course, is full of wonderful examples of these hand-forged medieval nail.
Oh,
I love things like this.
me too.
Another favorite object is this wonderful, I don't know how old it is. I'm guessing 100 or 200 years.
Yeah. Where did you get that
to me.
from?
I found that just outside Todi. And whether it's Umbrian or not, I don't know.
In a market.
It's very evocative.
Can we see the bottom? Oh, yeah. And inside? What's it like inside?
Inside it's got kind of rusty marks.
Gorgeous.
And another lovely thing, which I found in a little junk shop. I just moved these. Sophie, did you manage to take that? These were, there was a very established book restorer who'd also worked at the Vatican Museum. And he restored a very ancient book for me, and then as a gift gave me these tiny fragments of, I think they're 12th century vellum.
Wow.
With calligraphy.
So is vellum like leather? Is that
It's a calf skin, dried calf
Calf
skin,
skin,
I think.
yeah.
Very I'll just remove these.
Stunning.
And this is another lovely thing I found in just adjacent to my little medieval studio. Very, very heavy box.
Ah.
I use it for sewing things, but I don't know whether it was for tinder.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that's length of box is for candles, but obviously this one isn't because it's got the two-piece. Or maybe it's a money box.
And where did you get this?
In a little junk shop.
In a junk shop?
In the middle of Todi, beside my studio. Very heavy. So I love that.
And what were you doing in Todi work-wise?
So, luckily, for rent, very near 2 minutes from my house, was a little medieval shop with vaulted arches, which had been a fruit and veg shop. And I used that. It was like my world. And I filled it with all the things that I liked and painted on silk there at an atelier.
Yeah.
And it was on quite a main road. And we had a huge influx of rather rich tourists in the summer. So I sold quite well.
Fantastic. And was you used this to advertise, did you?
Oh, and this another lovely thing I got in one of the markets was this old child's ABC, what to write your lavagna, they call it in Italian. And then I used this in my window. I'd have my publicity for the pieces of textiles I did. You can see my love of sort of folk art and bright colours.
Yeah.
And things. Which leads me on to, here was another treasure from a market. Bizarre little 50s house. There's a sewing box.
Oh, brilliant. Does it open on the other
there
side?
used to be a monthly market. You never knew what you'd find. That's hilarious. And then part of my love is again for sewing and things. Up in Livorno, beside Lindsay's house, was the market. And there was a stall with all the remainders of ancient haberdashery shops. And I found these. Rummaging around, I found a collection of marvellous old silk ribbons. Silk, and then some are cotton ribbons.
Beautiful. So how long were you in Italy?
10 years.
Yeah.
And Oscar did all his high schooling there. And then it was quite difficult to be there on my own when Oscar left. Went to film school in Denmark. And actually left 2 days after one of the worst earthquakes, which was absolutely terrifying to be in. And somehow it's like a full stop to my time there. It was time to go.
Yep.
Oscar helped me pack up, and I still have very many happy memories, but I'm very happy to be here.
So you're back here now.
Safely, with all my memories. One other thing I wanted to say about Jacopone da Todi. If you know the wonderful music Stabat Mater. Stabat Mater is actually a poem, so several composers have put it to different. Pergolesi, for one, is one of my favorites. Jacopone da Todi grew up in Todi, which is the town I'm talking about, the same time as one of the most decadent popes. Which one? I can't remember. But anyway, they were at school together and there was classic rivalry. So Jacopone was more like a Franciscan, lived in great poverty, simplicity. Wonderful philosopher, wonderful poet. And Todi is extremely proud that he came from there. So there were rivals at school and rivals in the world as well. I think that was 1360. So that is just the time. Oh, yes, one little, to show you, in our garden, this was the neighbour's house. And apparently it had been a 12th century lookout tower. Then built on the top, there were cracks, crumbles, all sorts of different stones and bricks. But this was some of the original museum. And they're prayer flags from Bhutan. But it was charming.
So a very different life from Bhutan to Italy.
Very different, wonderful, simple, and a good halfway house between Asia and Europe. And thank you very much for listening.
Well, thank you very much, Susy, for telling us. That'll be our last story for the year, I think. So we'll say goodbye.
Goodbye, and thank you.